Next, I'm being joined on the program now by Temitope Akintunde. She is the head International Relations Units at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Dolapo Oni, who is the head of research at EcoBank. Our focus is what the implication for this exemption for Nigeria from this proposed cut by OPEC means. So, good morning to you, Temitope. Thank you so much for joining me. And good morning, Dolapo. Thank you also for joining this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dolapo, I'll start off with you. You know, following this decision by OPEC at its recent meeting, that decision caused oil prices to rise, and some energy analysts think the increase is a dead cat bounce. What do you think? What do you make of this deal?
Well, I mean, it's a deal, and it hasn't really impacted on the market yet because the fiscal barrels haven't been cut yet. I think the price increase that we're seeing is really not. It's not really. It has no real support. The likelihood is that prices jumped based on trader sentiment and the likes, or market sentiment. But I think the real jump in prices will come when we see the fiscal barrels start to reduce from OPEC countries. That's when we'll see the significant rise in price.
So for you, Temitope, what's your own take on this whole issue, especially for Nigeria being exempted?
Thank you very much. Nigeria being exempted is actually a good thing, considering the fact that we've had some disruptions, and this has lowered our own oil production output. But the thing there is also that the price that we have now at $50 per barrel, if it is sustainable, that is where Nigeria can really feel a little bit of an impact, because that will mean more revenue for us. The budget implementation will be easier for us. The oil industry, there will be more profitability for those companies that have been affected in the last few months and what have you. But the sustainability is the issue here that we actually have to look at. Okay,
so let me quickly bring in Dolapo to comment on this. Temitope says if oil prices are sustained around $50 per barrel, it just might be in our favor. What do you make of this?
I mean, definitely, I agree with her. I just tweeted about this as well, that it would be fantastic if at the current production we have of 1.9 million barrels per day, if we could get oil prices at $52 and above. I mean, to be fantastic for Nigeria, because bear in mind, we still have the budget benchmark at $38 per barrel. Mm-hmm. So that would give us some significant, bump up in terms of compensation of the barrels we have lost from what we're getting on the prices. So that would be great.
But then, Dolapo, how sustainable do you think this likely is going to be? Nigeria is not the only player in this market, and so just as we're hoping that oil prices will be in our favor, Iran, Libya, and the other oil producing exporting countries are also hoping that somehow they will, get as much as they can from the market.
Definitely. You see, the thing is, again, it's early days. We can't really say so much about how this deal is going to impact the market, because for me, the long-term picture is not very rosy, because the more oil prices start to rise, of course, the more profitable it becomes for shale producers to bring their shale oil into the market again. And we've seen that consistently now, shale oil producers in the US have brought rigs online, added more rigs consistently for almost about 9 to 12 weeks now in the US. Every week adding new rigs. So what that means is, as prices continue to rise, it becomes more economic to get into some shale plays that were not economic at lower oil prices. So there's still going to be that rush into the market once oil prices start to rise, which may affect our market share. But the long-term picture, which OPEC has seen, is that the low oil prices has affected capital investment decisions significantly. So in some 2 years, 3 years from now, we're going to see some significant decline in oil production from conventional oil fields. We're not talking shale oil fields now, which could really impact on global oil supply. So I think it's important that's why, right now OPEC is saying, look, we need to get prices to a level where investment decisions can be taken. And that is what this is really about.
Well, taking a look at today's figures with regards to oil prices. They're trending above $50.63 a barrel at the moment, and that's because of a rise in Iranian exports. I'm going to come back to you, Dolapo. Hold on there for us, and let me talk to Temitope here. Nigeria, Iran, and Libya will be allowed to produce at maximum levels. That's according to OPEC. And taking a look at this report now with regards where oil prices are at the moment this morning, there's a rise. Even if it's a subtle rise, it's a rise nonetheless because of an increase in Iranian exports. Give us a sense of what this means, particularly since, OPEC says Nigeria will be allowed to produce at maximum levels that make sense as part of any output limits.
Okay, let's look at the fact that, just like Dolakwa also said, we placed an output limit on the market because we want the prices to, sort of go up a little bit. But 3 of the players have been exempted. That's Nigeria, Iran, and Libya. And the reason Nigeria and Libya were exempted was because of the disruptions that they have had in terms of their own domestic productions. And the reason for Iran is because of the economic sanctions that were just lifted early this year. So you also have to look at a scenario whereby if these 3 people now begin to produce at maximum output, Nigeria alone can produce about 700,000 barrels per day, about 800,000 barrels per day more than what it's producing right now. If it produces at maximum, that's about 2 million barrels per day. So if they produce at maximum, are you sure we're not going back to where we were before the cuts?
But at the moment, they're not even able to really meet up to that demand because of the constant vandalism of pipelines in the.
But these are issues that, if probability they are addressed, just like what is happening in Libya, and if also Iran is able to flood the market with oil, and just like Dolakwa said, shale oil producers, they had to withdraw for a little while because of the cost of production for shale oil. Selling below anything less than $50 per barrel is not so easy for them. So now when you have a benchmark, or you have it going up, between $50 and $60 per barrel, the shale oil producers can decide to go back to the market, can decide to produce and begin to flood the market with, shale oil again. So you are almost back to the same scenario. So you see, when Saudi Arabia started this sort of, in quote, let me put it like that, price war, so to say, to retain its own share of the market, because they didn't want the shale oil producers to take so much of the market, and they started, the price war that crashed oil prices. It was a short-term thing, thinking that, okay, the shale oil people will go really back, but Saudi Arabia too needs to fund its own economy. 2/3 of the public service, 2/3 of the economy workers are public sector workers, and they are also reliant on petrol to fund their economy. So they also need this increase in oil price, for their own economy to also grow. So that's one of the challenges actually of having an economy that is dependent totally on oil, or at least about 60–70% dependent, like what we have here in Nigeria.
Dolapo, quickly weigh in on this one for us. Forcados terminal is coming online very soon, and we're hoping that this will also increase the number of cargoes that will be exported subsequently. But taking a look at this scenario as painted by Temitope, and of course looking at how much we need revenue to come into the economy, give us a sense of the amount of crude likely to be exported that might affect Nigeria's position, taking a look at this decision reached by OPEC to exempt the country.
Okay, I think it's key to recognize that Nigeria sort of operated with 3 or 4 major crude terminals down for a couple of months, almost about 4, if I could say. We've had Escravos, we've had Bonny Light, we've had Brass River, and we've had Forcados down for several months, but gradually we've started to see them come back. Quaibo came back, Forcados came back. Bonny Light has been is shut down now, so we have Bonny, Brass River, and we still have a few issues with Escravos to fix. But I think by and large, we are currently approaching 1.9 million barrels per day of production. which would ensure that we can actually pump export close to our usual 1.4, 1.5 million barrels per day. But we're not there yet. So revenue-wise, I think what we are losing in terms of barrels right now, the $50 oil price that we're getting is sort of almost compensating in terms of revenue for that, which is a good positive for the government.
And then there's optimism that, of course, the market will not be so anxious just as now. They're taking a very tepid position. But on the global scale, and as we're entering the fourth quarter, just give us your thoughts, your outlook for the market as we start this very crucial last quarter of the year.
Okay, the key thing to note, number one again, is October, we usually have the refinery maintenance in most parts of the world, Europe and Asia, where the bulk of the refining capacity around the world is. So as we start to enter mid-October, we may start to see some decline in demand, and that's what essentially is still pulling on oil prices right now, ensuring that oil prices don't go very high despite the OPEC decision. So as we start to enter mid-October, late October, we may see oil prices dip a little bit further. But the key reason again for that is the refinery maintenance, which ends by late October, early November, and we start to see the winter period where demand then starts to rise significantly as people start to stockpile ahead of the Christmas period, when there's a lot of fuel consumption, there's a lot of energy burnt in lighting and powering homes and all that. So that's going to be a massive period where after the OPEC decision has been taken in November and we've started to see the fiscal barrels shrink, then there should be a significant bump up in oil prices. But the key, again, another thing to recognize is that a lot of oil supply is still coming on the market. We still have new oil barrels coming on the market from various countries. Terminals are opening in Nigeria. New oil fields have been brought on stream in Ghana, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Congo. There are so many other oil fields around other parts of the world that will be coming on stream as well. We still have new supply coming in from Iran and from Iraq as well. So all that will be counteracting the demand in the market. So it might moderate how far oil prices could rise, keep it in the region of about 50 to 55. But in Q4, that would be positive for Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much, Dolapo. Temitope, let's wrap up this program now. Do you also share the same sentiments as Dolapo that, well, we've got a very bumpy road ahead, but it might be good as well?
Yes, I share his perspective, but we also have to look at the other factors. You know, we have the non-OPEC members, non-OPEC oil producing countries that control almost about 60% of the market now. And the decisions of the cartel are not binding on them in any way. Okay. So these are things that might also affect whether the output, whether it's general or whether it's just restricted to some.
All right, we'll keep our eye on that ahead of the meeting, in the next meeting in November. But thank you so much for coming on the program.